The summer air in San Diego carried the scent of salt and diesel the day it happened. The marina was crowded with off-duty servicemen, dock workers, and a handful of civilians who had no idea they were about to witness a story that would travel through whispers for decades. At the edge of a private training facility near the naval base stood a small wooden platform used for demonstrations. That afternoon, the guest on the platform was none other than Bruce Lee. Bruce wasn't yet the global icon the world would later revere, but among martial artists, he was already a storm gathering strength. Lean, focused, and radiating quiet intensity, he had been invited to demonstrate his philosophy of Jeet Kune due to a small group of military personnel. It wasn't a flashy show. No boards were stacked, no bricks were arranged. Just a man in black trousers and a fitted shirt, speaking calmly about speed, simplicity, and efficiency. True combat, Bruce said, his voice steady, is not about anger. It is about timing. It is about knowing when the storm arrives, and being gone before it strikes. 7 men stood nearby, watching intently. Most were curious. One was not. Petty Officer Jack Hammer Callahan, a broad-shouldered Navy SEAL with a chest like a steel drum and forearms that looked carved from oak, leaned against a railing with crossed arms. He had the reputation of a battlefield hardliner. Multiple deployments. Hand-to-hand combat instructor. The kind of man who believed toughness was measured in scars. When Bruce finished demonstrating a rapid straight punch, so fast it snapped the air like a whip, Callahan chuckled loudly. "That's cute," he said. The air shifted. Bruce turned, eyes calm. "Excuse me." Callahan stepped forward, boots heavy against the wooden deck. "All that talk about speed and philosophy. Why don't you come fight a real man?" A few of the witnesses exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't part of the schedule. Bruce tilted his head slightly. "Real?" he asked gently. Callahan smirked. "Yeah. Not movie stuff. Not fancy hand tricks. A real fighter." Bruce studied him, not with anger, but with curiosity. The silence stretched long enough for the gulls overhead to seem loud. "You believe size defines a man?" Bruce asked. "I believe strength does." Bruce stepped down from the platform. The movement was fluid, almost casual. He walked toward Callahan until they were only a few feet apart. The difference in build was dramatic. Callahan outweighed him by at least 80 pounds. "I don't want trouble," Bruce said softly. Callahan laughed. "You're already in it." One of the officers present started to intervene, but Bruce raised a hand. His gaze never left the SEAL. "Very well," Bruce said. "But understand something. I will not fight your anger. I will fight your intention." Callahan cracked his knuckles. "You talk too much." The 8 men present instinctively formed a loose circle. No crowd. No cheers. Just the hum of distant boat engines and the tension of 2 philosophies about to collide. Callahan moved first. He lunged with a powerful right hook meant to end the encounter in one brutal statement. It was fast for a man his size. Fast enough that most opponents would have frozen. Bruce didn't. He shifted, barely a step. The punch sliced through empty space. In that same heartbeat, Bruce's fist shot forward. A straight lead punch. Compact. Precise. It stopped 1 inch from Callahan's face. The SEAL blinked. He hadn't even seen it travel. Again, Callahan growled. This time he attacked with a combination. Left jab, right cross, then a grappling reach to overpower and crush. His military training took over. Close the distance. Dominate. But Bruce flowed backward and sideways like water slipping around a rock. Each punch missed by a whisper. Each grab caught nothing but fabric and air. Then it happened. Bruce stepped in, not away, and delivered 3 rapid strikes to Callahan's torso. Not heavy. Not dramatic. But placed with surgical accuracy. Solar plexus. Floating rib. Shoulder joint. Callahan staggered back, breath stolen from his lungs. Confusion flashed across his face. He hadn't even felt the blows until his body reacted. Bruce stopped. "I told you," he said calmly. "I do not fight strength with strength." The SEAL's pride burned hotter than his bruised ribs. With a roar, he charged again, attempting to tackle Bruce to the ground. What happened next would become the reason only 8 men ever truly understood the legend. As Callahan lunged, Bruce pivoted sharply, hooking his leg behind the SEAL's knee while guiding his momentum forward. It wasn't brute force, it was redirection. Callahan's own speed betrayed him. In less than a second, the massive Navy SEAL crashed onto the wooden deck with a thunderous slam. Bruce stood over him, but did not strike. He simply looked down. Your power, Bruce said quietly, is impressive, but you are fighting yourself. Callahan tried to rise, but the wind hadn't fully returned to his lungs. His limbs felt heavier than before. Not broken, not destroyed, just neutralized. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Bruce stepped back, offering his hand. The gesture hung in the air like a question. Callahan stared at it. Pride wrestled with reality. Finally, slowly, he accepted the help and stood. You could have hit me, the SEAL muttered. Yes, Bruce replied. But that would teach you nothing. The other 7 men stood frozen, processing what they had seen. It wasn't brutality. It wasn't humiliation. It was control. Callahan rubbed his ribs, eyes narrowed, but no longer mocking. What the hell was that? He asked. Bruce gave a faint smile. Economy of motion, he said. You were strong. I was efficient. The wind off the harbor cooled the tension between them. But the story wasn't over. Because what none of them realized at that moment was that Callahan wasn't finished learning. And Bruce wasn't finished teaching. Only 8 witnessed what happened next. And none of them would ever forget it. The sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows across the deck. Most demonstrations would have ended there. Pride bruised. Respect earned. Story finished. But Callahan's silence said otherwise. He stepped forward again, not aggressively this time, but deliberately. Show me, he said. Bruce studied him carefully. There was no mockery now. Only intensity. Show you what? Bruce asked. How you moved like that. The other men relaxed slightly. This was no longer a challenge. It was curiosity. Bruce nodded. Very well. They reset their positions. Bruce motioned for Callahan to throw another punch, this time at half speed. The SEAL complied. Bruce intercepted the strike with a simple parry, barely touching the arm, redirecting it just enough to unbalance the center line. He followed with a controlled tap to the chest. You commit fully, Bruce explained. But commitment without awareness becomes vulnerability. Callahan frowned. In combat, hesitation gets you killed. Correct, Bruce replied. But charging blindly does the same. He demonstrated footwork next. Small shifts. Subtle pivots. The kind that required discipline, not muscle. He explained how tension slows reaction time. How anger narrows vision. How real combat is measured in fractions of seconds. You were faster than me, Callahan admitted quietly. Bruce shook his head. No. I arrived sooner. The difference hung in the air. The 7 other witnesses began asking questions. They tried simple drills. Bruce corrected stances, adjusted shoulders, repositioned hips. It became less of a confrontation and more of a masterclass. Callahan attempted the straight lead punch Bruce had used earlier. His first try was heavy and telegraphed. Relax, Bruce advised. Speed comes from absence of tension. The second attempt was better. By the third, even Bruce nodded slightly in approval. You see. Bruce said. You already have power. Now remove what is unnecessary. Callahan wiped sweat from his brow. You could have embarrassed me. Bruce's expression softened. That is not my goal. A long pause followed. I misjudged you, Callahan admitted. Bruce offered a faint smile. Most people do. The sky darkened into deep blue. Lights flickered on across the marina. The small group remained gathered, the energy completely transformed from earlier hostility. Callahan extended his hand again, this time not to test, but to thank. You fight different, the SEAL said. Bruce shook his hand firmly. I fight honestly. Years later, each of those 8 men would tell the story differently. Some emphasized the speed, others the throw. A few spoke of the silence after the first punch missed. But all agreed on one thing. It wasn't about who won. It was about what strength truly meant. Bruce walked away that evening without applause, without spectacle. Just footsteps fading into the hum of the harbor night. Callahan remained behind, staring at the wooden deck where he had fallen, not in shame, but in understanding. Strength without control is chaos. Control without ego is mastery. Only 8 witnessed the moment a challenge became a lesson. And none of them ever again confused size with power. Because on that quiet San Diego afternoon, a Navy SEAL learned that being a real man had nothing to do with muscle, and everything to do with humility.